everybody. Welcome to Hope for Our Times. And man, it is so exciting to be here today. And maybe you can guess it by the background that I have here today, who my guest is. My guest is Mondo Gonzales from Prophecy Watchers. And what a treat it is to have him here with us. Please welcome Mondo. Mondo, good to see you.
Oh, it's always good to be with you, Tom.
Are you ready to rock and roll?
We're ready, and we're gonna be rocking and rolling, here pretty soon in Orlando, which is good.
We are. We're going to be in Orlando in a minute. I'm going to ask you. I have several different things I want to cover. The red heifers we'll get to today. We're going to get to who are the 10 kings. What are your thoughts on that? And then also, I've got to talk to you about the Psalm 19 project, because to me, that just displays the glory of God. But you have an Orlando conference coming up here in. It's actually only in a few weeks. That's right, because it's like 2.5 weeks or something like that.
It's coming fast, and of course, all of us are busy doing a lot of things. But yeah, this conference is coming, and I'm excited because you're going to be actually in Israel, Lord willing, and I get to interview you right on live stream. We're going to do we're going to kind of zoom you in or something where we get to see what's going on there in the land and any updates that are happening there. And just again, prophetically, as we know, things change every single day. So that'll be one of the neat events of the conference itself. We have 20 speakers and others, which again, everybody's favorites. It'll be a great time. But again, to bring somebody in all the way from Israel, that'll be good.
It's going to be fun. So theoretically, all Lord willing, is I'll be in Galilee when we live stream. I think it's going to be kind of late for me there, but perfect time for all the folks that are in Florida for it. First time I've missed Orlando in a long time to be there in person, but I'm actually going to be there and I'm going to be live, and you get to put me in the hot seat. You're going to ask me questions, so it's going to be pretty exciting.
Yeah, should be good. So, people want information, prophecywatchers.com, check it out. They can live stream as well, and or they can be there in person. We're almost sold out there in person, and so if people are interested and they want to come, they better get on it. Otherwise, they can live stream.
Yeah, that's cool. By the way, we have here shortly after that on Good Friday, April 18th, we're hosting a Seder in California, 412 Church in Temecula, which I need to get you out to sometime for like a Sunday night or something like that, like a prophecy update when you're here. And but so I've been doing these every year for about 30 years, Mondo, and hosting them. But somebody else leads the Seder, Bob Probert, a gentleman named Bob Probert. And then this year we're flying in Josh Aaron from Israel to lead everybody in worship. And it's really cool. It's not going to be live streamed. It's not going to be on the website or anything. It's an in-person only Passover, and it's so, you've done those before. It's so cool. And this one with Bob is so interactive, and it's fun, it's engaging, and get to worship with Josh Aaron during it in a very small setting. It's going to be cool. And then all of the proceeds are going to a ministry in Jerusalem that reaches Jews and Arabs with the gospel of Jesus. So I'm excited about that too. So we have these two big things, everybody, Orlando Conference and the Seder, the opposite coasts, one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast, and great things are happening. Okay, Mondo, I've taken enough of your time already. So let's just roll with it. I got to ask you this. I want to get going with the 10 kings. You've talked about them many times before. As we look at the 10 kings, we see things developing. We can look at what's going on between the U.S. and Europe now. Man, things are escalating. There's no doubt the deep state is being exposed. But when I look at the 10 kings in the Bible, for example, Daniel chapter 7, Revelation chapter 17, it appears there's 10 kings in place before Antichrist comes to power. In both those passages, the 10 kings give their power to the Antichrist. In fact, in Daniel 7, it's out of the 10 that the 11th, the beast, rises up. So walk us through the 10 kings. I'd like to know who you think they are or what you think they might be. How close are we, and different things as we go along in this conversation. So take it away.
Yeah, I think it's always important to at least address the traditional viewpoint. The traditional viewpoint is, and has been for a long time in really dispensational circles, is that the world will basically, from the Club of Rome, that their idea, globalist, idea of dividing the world into 10 regions, and from that you would have 10 individual presidents or kings, governors of those regions, and then out of that would come forth the final beast system. That's the traditional interpretation, and certainly has held long in that regard. I find some challenges with that because even as much as John Walvoord, who many people might know, he says, in his commentary that, the Bible says that that there'll be 10 kings over regions or stuff, and you're like, well, that's not what it says. That's not what it says. We have to be careful. Now, I'm not denying that any sort of globalist government in the future needs to be organized. There could be regions, and no doubt that's been there. But the challenge for me was in Revelation 17:12. As you look at this, there's two things that come up, which I'm suggesting as an opportunity to think outside the box. Is that it says these are kings without a kingdom. So that's very clear. And so when you have these figures who don't have a kingdom, generally a king like Prince Charles, he's a king over a geographical region. But these are kings without a geographical region. They don't have a kingdom. But yet, one of the things that we know is that, again, in the very language itself, again, I'm not making this up. People could check it out. If you look at the BDAG lexicon, BDAG, those are just names of the lexicon. The second entry in there for this word is, it says very clearly that they're not always kings with a physical kingdom. Basileus is the Greek word. It can mean somebody that has unusual or transcendent power. And so when you look at that, you have kings without a kingdom, which no geographical region, and you have people with unusual influence or power. You can start looking at outside the box a little bit. And what we see there as well is in verse 13 of Revelation 17, that they make an agreement with the Antichrist. If you have it open, I think let's if you're willing to read 17, 12, and 13 to see the power of the text itself.
As I see here, and I've got a question on here. So verse 12 says the 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings who have received no kingdom as of yet, but they receive authority for 1 hour as kings with the beast. These are of one mind, and they will give their power and authority to the beast.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So what you see here is, as you mentioned in Daniel 7, the kings are arising. I'm going to not use the word king. These influencers, these power brokers, that's what the word is. These power brokers, unusual power, they are rising up and they are establishing the foundation of the beast system. And so when we think about all that, eventually comes a point where this figure, the 11th horn, arises after them, and they make an agreement with him. And what we know from verse 13, basically they say, it says they hand over their power and their authority, or their power and their capabilities, their influence and their capabilities. The languages are all there. They hand it over to this guy in order to rule with him. So what I envision is these technocrats, these oligarchs, these people who have tremendous influence and power. We've been talking about this for 3 or 4 years, and kind of laying the foundation for it. And so there's going to come a point where the Antichrist comes to them and he says, hey, look, in order for me to accomplish what I'm going to accomplish, I've been given authority from the dragon, to rule for 42 months, the last half of the tribulation, with unlimited authority. We know that from Revelation 13. I need to have the ability to censor. I need to have the ability to track. I need to have the ability to surveil. I need to have the ability to cause a mark for economic reasons, left and right. And so I need all this, and I can't do it without technology. So he makes an agreement with these figures who hand over their power, their capabilities to him in order to accomplish his, again, tyrannical system. So in that regard, there's a whole bunch there that when we began talking about this 3 or 4 years ago, I talked about several of the richest people in the world that have influence. And then now, and it's been very fascinating because in my latest rendition of my presentation on this, I got a picture of Bezos, Musk, all of them sitting right there at the inauguration of Trump. And now, of course, we've seen Musk sitting at the right hand of King Trump and, and providing for him all of like his resources. As we know with Doge, what did he do? He got all these smart young kids, created algorithms that did not exist and said, I want you to search all of the government infrastructure, bring it together where you have all this disparate forms of software that's not unified. I want you to take into consideration all the different ways of the government thing, and I want you to find things. And they did it, and here we are. So to me, there's no doubt that certain of these individuals have unusual power and influence.
All right, let me ask you a few questions regarding this. So one of them is you mentioned the beast, who is commonly known as the Antichrist, will, and I understand you're given a hypothetical situation because we don't know for sure, will talk to these 10 kings, these power brokers, whatever we want to call them, and say, hey, in order to establish what I need from the power that's been given to me from the dragon, this is what I'll need. I'll need the technology for Mark of the Beast. So do you think in that regard, the Antichrist, when he rises to power, he will actually bring up Satan into the conversation, the dragon with the 10 kings?
You know, that's a great question. Whether he's that bold or not, that's a good. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. What we do know is that clearly he's empowered by the dragon, and he gets people to worship the dragon. So now, whether he thinks in a typical Luciferian mentality that Lucifer is the son of light, it's all wonderful, is the Antichrist himself deceived? Yet we know that he speaks blasphemy against God. You know, if we look at his bio in the Bible, he's definitely a crafty individual. He establishes kingdom through intrigue, according to the book of Daniel. So you have a variety of these descriptions. Does he come straight out, I mean, from the platform and say, hey, everybody, we're worshiping dragon, the serpent of old? He probably wouldn't use that language, but we know in the middle of the tribulation, he declares himself to be God and has miracles to allegedly show that to be the case. But that's the real question, is when he comes to these 10 individuals and they hand over their authority and their capabilities to him, and they're allowed to rule with him, how transparent is he with them? I don't know. But what we do know is, so far, if we look at some of the most influential people in the world, I mean, we all know that whatever people's intentions are, like Musk, God knows his heart, I don't. But, you know, a few years ago, I got a picture. He's got a Baphomet outfit on for Halloween. So I don't think he worships Jesus Christ by any means. And so, and let me say this too. We have to be very careful, all of us, myself included, in the sense as we look at prophecy, humility is required because things can change on a dime. But I think it's when we look at these situations that are in the tribulation period, we think of them, and I'm guilty of this. I think in terms of what I understand right now, but that's very it's very myopic. It's nearsighted because why? I need to think in terms of what's going to be after the restrainer is removed, after the great delusion has been unleashed on the earth, how there's a lack of discernment and deception everywhere. What does it look like then? And I don't think any of us have the ability to truly conceive of what that looks like. And so, as always, we present these paradigms in ways to say, will these technocratic figures or others be completely sold out and deceived into worshiping the dragon after the restrainer is removed? Most likely. Mm-hmm. You know, even the average person on the street. Again, we don't have the capacity to understand unrestrained evil, lawlessness being unleashed, and the great delusion being there. It's foreign naturally to us.
Great point. So interesting. I watched it was a podcast a couple years, probably about 2 years ago, thinking maybe a year and a half ago. It was Babylon Bee with Elon Musk. They had two different podcasts. By the way, I have a similar one coming up with Kyle Mann from Babylon Bee. But he had mentioned Elon Musk in the conversation. So I watched the podcast, and they asked him about Jesus. And I can tell you he was not argumentative. He didn't push back against the idea. You could see the wheels turning, as opposed to a typical atheist or whatever, or Satan worshiper or something like that. And I think so I'll give you another illustration or give you this thought, not illustration, but this thought. So years ago, go back about 40 years, I sold drugs for the Mexican mafia. And I won't go into all of the details, but a few years after that, I got saved. And my life changed. And it started to change since I got saved, and that was 37 years ago now. So you look at the process of it, and you got to look at some of these people that are now, I would consider technocrats, Elon Musk being one of them. We still don't know about their own salvation, where it's going to go. Is God drawing them? And one of the other dangers, or one of the other areas that I see people go in our circles, is you take a person, you immediately label them as unredeemable. I'm not saying you, but I mean, it's just real. And I've done it. I do it all the time. I have a show on Thursdays called You Can't Make This Up, where I say a lot of things that maybe I shouldn't say, but it's this aspect of, so we don't, there's certain things we just can't know this side of heaven. And the people that God draws, the Apostle Paul, Saul who becomes Paul, Mary Magdalene, who was possessed with 7 demons, the demoniacs at Gadarenes, and so it's looking. You start going down this, and so we don't know who's going to get saved. And I look at certain things like this right now, where I see Trump and I see the Elon Musk, Larry Ellison, the people Trump is surrounding himself with. By the way, China's doing the same thing. They've got their own people. All these major leaders are doing the same thing, try to be the one at the top. So they're all doing it. But with that, I think there's going to be a lot of other people that are going to be inspired by what they see right now. The boldness of Trump and how he moves is not typical of politics. And I'm thinking there's a lot of world leaders that are in the wings right now thinking, hey, that gives me an idea. That's how you do this, not business as usual. And I think that is about ready to explode on the scene. So we're going to see a whole lot of, maybe we'll be raptured by then, but a whole lot of Trump-like figures, and probably a lot more Elon Musk and Larry Ellisons that are younger that are coming in. I think it's just beginning to be an explosion in this whole world. Fascinating. We also have 3 of the kings, according to Daniel chapter 7, are eliminated by the beast once he rises up, and that all makes me wonder. Why do they just oppose him? They don't agree with him. Do they come to faith in Christ during that time, or what is it exactly?
Yeah, I think I was going to bring that up because the word there in Hebrew is very challenging. Some versions will say humiliates or subdues. It doesn't use the word kill, but somehow he subjugates them. Whatever that means, we don't exactly know. But what I find fascinating too is that, as you mentioned, you have this all around the world, and I think we all realize that what we see in the very definition of the Greek word is this transcendency. It uses the word, again, I'm not making it up, I'm just reading the lexicon. Transcendent power or influence. And so when I look back over the last 5 years, especially if we go to 2020, and we look about who are the people that are influencing governments or nations, political systems. Klaus Schwab, okay, we've talked about him quite a bit. Again, he trains thousands of leaders. So you have all these figures, Bill Gates, no doubt, Bezos, we can name all of the richest people, but yet the one thing in common with them is none of them have any government positions, but yet their ability to influence world governments, not only United Nations, but the World Health Organization, again, with Bill Gates as an example. I have articles from Politico, which is very left wing, and they're acknowledging, how did Bill Gates, a software guy, get so much power over the governments of the world as it relates to vaccines and other things? So, I mean, that's them calling it out. So I have another article by Axios where they talked about Elon Musk having influence over the world. This was prior to Trump, where he's given Starlinks to Ukraine as an example, originally at the first part of the war because Russia shut off their internet. And so then Russia was considering targeting Elon Musk as an enemy, as a military enemy. So what these left-wing journalists were recognizing as, whether it's Musk or Schwab or even Gates, how did these people come to a place where they're influencing and dictating to world government organizations, or even smaller governments, like again in Africa, Bill Gates is very influential, but it's through money. It's through corruption. It's through force. So to me, putting it in that paradigm, again, kings without a kingdom, influencers, transcendent influencers without a kingdom, is very fascinating. Again, I'm not 100% dogmatic on any of it, but I do think, wow, this is another option that as we watch things unfold, we're watching, again, no matter what, we're watching unelected, rich, technocratic oligarchs with transcendent power. That's a fact.
Yeah. Well, this is interesting when you put it in that perspective, because again, you go to Trump, you go to Xi Jinping in China, or whoever, and it was Putin who said, I think it was like 2015, whoever controls AI can control the world. So you look at this, okay, you look at Trump surrounds himself with, Xi Jinping, same thing, and what are they doing? It's these people who obviously are exceptionally powerful, and the Biden administration, Zuckerberg made it very clear lately, well, the Biden administration basically said, we need you and you've got to do this for us, because even though the Biden administration was manipulating, nevertheless, they need the power of a Mark Zuckerberg. So it's fascinating when you George Soros has been doing this for years. You know, it was just before the technology became as big as it has as of late. So I look at these dynamics. I find them very fascinating. With the 10 kings. In Revelation chapter 17, it says they have no kingdom as of yet. And I think it's verse 12 we read. So now commentators would say that is a reference to John writing this back in 90-95 AD when he wrote the words of the book of Revelation where he says, as of yet. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I have had the same question in my own. It's like, well, is he writing that and saying, well, that they will be regional governors over 10 future kingdoms that will then be the foundation of the beast system. Again, that's the traditional interpretation. I think what you see there is two things. Again, that's possible. One of the reasons that I don't lean in that direction, because two other things. One is, again, the very language. These people, they can be transcended. They don't have to be. They could be actual governors. But secondly, it says that their rule in verse 13 says they hand it over and then they get their rule. So their rule is their kingdoms. Their rule is their ability. Again, their rule comes after the Antichrist, not before. So to me, if we say it's not as of yet, that you still have the foundation of the 10 kings, you go, well, now they're still ruling, but 13 says they don't rule until they get it in an agreement. When they hand it over, they get to rule with him for an hour. So their rule with him is not prior. Their rule is after. And then the second thing that I find interesting is we understand similes, right? You know, like and as. Well, it's very clear in the Greek that it's the word hos. It says that they rule as or like a king. Okay, so if I say, hey, I have something like an apple in my hand, that it's not an apple, it's like an apple. It has similarities. And so the fact that they rule in a similar way as what you would imagine as a king would be, but they're not an actual king. That's why I look at it as being interesting. Is they're kings without a kingdom. So again, I could be all wrong, which I might be. But those are the reasons why I would lean in that direction, because what we're seeing in this kind of 10-king paradigm or a technocratic paradigm, we're watching it unfold before our very eyes. And so it's, again, that could end up being wrong, but it seems pretty strong right now, especially when we look at, for example, Klaus Schwab in his book, the Great Reset or the Fourth Industrial Revolution, he has there in the appendix, and he says quite clearly, the way that we are going to establish globalism, which is his goal, he says it is through technology. And he lists 21 different technologies of how they are going to use technology to establish a globalistic system. And so if we look at what we're looking at, it's not necessarily, Prince Charles that has technology. It's these, even the American government, we know there's military things that people do, AI and stuff. But if you look at the greatest proponents of AI or even the quantum computer, it's all these private technocrats, these governments. And so no doubt, and I would say this, that Biden provided the template for the beast system, as you said, because when he wanted to control the narrative and information, he said quite clearly, for example, well, we're not going to require any medical vaccines on anybody. That's not our job. But he let the companies do it. And then when he wanted to stifle information, he went to Zuckerberg, as you said, or even at the time, Twitter, and they squashed any contrary narrative. Well, that's exactly, that's Revelation 13. I'm not saying, of course, Biden's not the Antichrist, but the use of technology to control worldwide the narrative. Again, Twitter's worldwide, Facebook's worldwide. They were able to do it everywhere. And that's why we see if it doesn't follow, we see this in Britain and stuff. If you don't follow the government's perspective, they're going to want to shut you down. We see this in Brazil, right, as well. Mm-hmm. But if you're willing to follow these leftist globalistic ideas, then you get free reign, but you got to shut down the contrary alternative viewpoints. So we've seen kind of a template of how these technocrats have been used already to uphold a globalist type governmental mentality in the different governments of the world.
Mm-hmm. And even in that, as we see them, they're working together, really. Some of the politicians, some of the non-elected officials, and then the guys in the tech world, they're all technocrats, I guess you would say. And then with that, the case in point regarding it's the corporations that are taking the lead on things. Facebook would be one example, Google another, right on down the list. Elon Musk with, SpaceX. So when we look at that, NASA only did so much. Elon Musk comes along and says, wait a minute, this is crazy. We can do so much more. It took private enterprise to really develop this. And that's what's happening. It's also, I think, Mondo, not a coincidence that what we have going on in the world right now is the rise of these tech billionaires all coming at the same time. Well, Israel is in focus. We have Russia issues. We got China issues. We have central bank digital currencies, all of the tracking and everything. This couldn't have all happened in a particular generation unless God was the one who was sovereign that made sure these people became billionaires and were willing to invest their money in everything, including an Elon Musk and the Zuckerbergs and right on down the list. We wouldn't have SpaceX, we wouldn't have Starlink, we wouldn't have these things that are necessary unless it all happened. I just don't see it as being a coincidence that it all happened at the same time. I find it very fascinating. And what you're saying is also very fascinating too. It's going to cause me to look at it a little bit more. I'm going to ask you about this in a minute. I know I want to get into the red heifers. I want to get a Project 19. We've been talking almost a half hour already, but I want to ask you about the feet of iron and feet of clay. I'm assuming Daniel chapter 2, the dream of Nebuchadnezzar, I'm assuming there's 10 toes there also because we have the feet. I want to ask you about that also. It's partly strong, partly weak, and it's this last days empire. We'll get there in a second, but I want to ask you again, how can people connect with you? What's the best way?
Yeah, if they go to prophecywatchers.com, it's our home base. You can go there and see how to watch us. And, we have a big footprint, television and podcasting and print magazines and other things, social media. So they can go there and find that. And we have some stuff there, but the main thing is, what do you want to see? You want to see us on your TV? We got Roku, you name it.
So very cool, prophecywatchers.com. And there's a conference coming up in Orlando I think it's only 2.5 or 3 weeks away, right? 3 weeks
Yeah,
away?
March 27th, and people can see you. You're right there. That's your picture. And March 27th through 30th, Orlando, Florida. Again, prophecyWatchers.com. You can scroll down and see that banner. That's the banner you'll see, and people can live stream it. Again, we have over 20 speakers that are going to be there, and it really is a great time. It's a great time. You get a lot of choices of who you want to listen to, which topics, and again, all the topics are very different. And everybody has their own really niche of what they want to see and hear.
And I'll be live streaming with Mondo because I'm going to be in Israel at the shores, well, in a hotel in Galilee. That's where I'll be when we're actually live streaming. It's going to be a great time. And then also you can join myself. I'm hosting a Seder, a Passover presentation on April 18th. You can check that out at the HopeForTimes.com website. Bob Probert's going to be leading the Passover, the Seder. It's music, it's fun, it is outstanding understanding of the Exodus and the Last Supper and who we are. It's great outreach to the Jewish community. And then also Josh Aaron from Israel is going to be joining us. He's going to be leading us in worship in person, coming over all the way from Israel. It's going to be terrific. And all of the proceeds go to a ministry in the Old City of Jerusalem that is about the salvation of both Jews and Arabs. So great opportunity and with a great great goal of the gospel of Jesus. Okay, Mondo, the feet, Daniel chapter 2. Nebuchadnezzar has a dream. He sees these feet partly of iron, partly of clay, partly strong, partly weak. It is the last days empires, an extension of the legs of iron that are the Roman Empire. So this last days empire comes along. It appears to have 10 toes. I'm guessing that's 10 toes because there's feet. I don't know if it actually mentions 10 toes. It mentions toes in the dream. But so why do you think, just your thoughts, it's partly strong and partly weak? Well, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, there's a couple of viewpoints that I think are worthy of discussion. And the first one is simply the recognition that Rome, being the two legs of iron, again, very strong, very really unopposed at the time of, certainly the time of Jesus. But when we come to the end, one view is that there is still opposition. The beast system is there. You have the revived Roman Empire around the Mediterranean basin. But there's something different about this. It's not as strong in some ways as the iron, because again, it says iron doesn't mix with clay, and as we know, that certainly would not. It would reduce the strength. So that's one viewpoint, because what we do see in Daniel 8, Daniel 11, Revelation 16, other passages where the Antichrist, people got to remember this, that in the first half of the tribulation, he's consolidating himself. He arrives on the scene, we know, at the agreement with the Jews in Daniel 9:27. But he doesn't rule for 7 years with unlimited authority over all tribes, tongues, and peoples. That doesn't happen until Revelation really 13 in the second half, because it says quite clearly, basically he has a wound, he's healed, the dragon is kicked out of heaven, comes down, gives his authority to the beast, and then it says he rules for 42 months. And we also see that in Daniel 7 as well, and Daniel 8, where it describes times, and half a time. So it's very consistent. So, but we know that he's still opposed. The king of the south, the kings of the east. So a lot of people will look at it that way, that even though it is his influence extends over the world, again, all tribes, tongues, nations, people, he still is opposed by certain. So therefore it is weaker than the original Roman Empire. The other angle, which I find interesting as well, again, something to ponder, is in Daniel 2:43, where it says that they will not mingle with the seed of men. And so you're like, and it's talking about the iron and the clay there. And it says, they will not mingle with the seed of man. Well, in typical linguistics or hermeneutics, you go, well, who's the antecedent of the pronoun they? Well, if you go back, it's kind of this, you don't know. It's weird the way it just pops out of nowhere. So some people will speculate, because of the contrast between they and the seed of men, having it being similar to Genesis 6, where you have the they of the sons of God, these angelic beings, and the they of, or the group of the humans, the sons of Adam, humanity, rather the sons of Adam rather than the sons of God. that some people think that there's going to be such a connection between the spiritual realm or the satanic dragon realm of the two kingdoms that it's not going to mix very well. And so some people will think of that as being maybe there'll be Nephilim involved. I don't know. I just know that Daniel 2:43 is a great puzzle. I've looked at dozens of commentaries on it, and nobody has a good answer for it. So those are the two, I think, primary options that at least bubble to the top of how I would look at that passage.
That's great. Thank you. Really appreciate your thoughts on all of this. It's going to expand some people's minds to start looking at. I think you look at the 10 kings. The whole thing is fascinating. We know this last days empire is coming. I agree. We don't know. Also with you, we don't know exactly how all of it's going to be. Seems like every day we wake up, Mondo, and something has happened that everybody goes, that wasn't on my bingo card. I didn't see that happening. But we know how it's going to end. We can see that the scripture does tell us this will be here at this particular time, and we can see things pushing that direction. All right. We also know there's going to be a temple that's going to be built in Jerusalem. We know that based on scriptures. And then, Mondo, you've written a book on the red heifer. So fill us in a little bit about that. I'm curious as to two things. The first one is this regarding the red heifers. A lot of people are talking about them. You've done a lot of research. You've interviewed people. You've become friends with some that are involved. With the red heifers, why haven't any of them, while there are still some that are valid, why haven't they been sacrificed yet? Let's start with that, and then I want to ask you for the biblical confirmation for the need of the ashes of a red heifer in order for Israel to proceed with temple worship.
Yeah, this is just perfect timing because two things. My new book, I updated the book from a couple years ago because there's so much happening. The Mystery of the Red Heifer, published by Charisma. It just came out today, started today on Amazon.
It
so
did.
People can check
there
that
it is.
out.
Yeah.
Yep, there it is. And and yesterday, good timing, is I spent the day with Byron Stinson for a whole different reason. But I was talking to him about the red heifers. He was the main guy that brought. He's the one organized it from Boneh, Israel. He was there, brought the rabbis over, et cetera, et cetera. And so I was talking to him, and we were talking about exactly that question about not only the timing. Right now, there are two 100% still fully qualified red heifers out of the original 5. A third one is, I would say, semi-qualified is what he said. He said if they really needed to, they could use it, but why use something that is questionable potentially when you have 2 others they're still qualified. So we have that. Other people, just so people know, they don't age out. There is no upper age in the rabbinic writings. I wrote about that in the book, and so people don't have to worry about that. But in talking about the timing, they have not stopped. They are going full speed. Some things I can share and some things I can't, but they are full speed on it happening this year. They're in motion. Everything's in motion. It could happen very quickly. It has not happened privately or secretly or anything else. I know there's a lot of rumors. I address that in the book as well. But from that window between Passover and Shavuot, which is basically April to June, is a window that they prefer. It's not required, but they want to do it because and you've been there, we've all been there. I mean, some of us, but in the sense, when you're there in Israel during the high holidays, it's a celebration, man. It's the whole Western Wall Plaza is filled to the brim, people dancing and jumping, and they want to be able to coincide the ceremony with that level of joy, which coincides again around one of the high holidays, either Passover, the week of Passover, or Shavuot, or even I guess in the fall times with Tabernacles. But that is the window right now.
Okay. So when I look at it, I think, okay, they could have sacrificed at least one of them a year ago, couldn't they? And because the ashes are good, from what I understand, as long as they've got ashes.
Yeah, they could have performed the ceremony a year ago. That's what's the plan until all this stuff with Hamas happened. But again, that's all behind it. The optimism in Israel right now, in every single way, is very, very high. Just even from a security perspective, so religiously speaking, it has never been higher now that Trump is in, and so this. this idea of performing the ceremony, they are gung ho, ready, eager. I mean, they're talking about they got the truck, the trailers ready to bring the cow. They got the basically the altar and the pier. He was telling me about the priest that he's been in training, 19 years old. He's in training, getting it just right on real animals to do it. So we are, again, I'm not saying it's next week or even this festival. Nobody knows, but there's never been a better time than right now.
So I look at it and think, okay, they could have sacrificed it without telling anybody. That's one of the thoughts I have. So when I look at it, they could have done that, and I'm thinking in my mind a reason why they wouldn't want something like that to leak out, because you could start World War III or whatever would happen over there in Israel. But you mentioned, the Trump factor makes a big difference with what Israel's doing, and feels strengthened to be able to do. But I'm thinking, okay, Passover's only, 4 weeks away now? 5 weeks away? So you're looking at Passover, and I'm thinking if they sacrifice the red heifer publicly in the next 5 or 6 weeks, this would be quite an experience. I mean,
Well, originally,
I'll just say it that way.
I mean, originally when I talked to Byron, I remember this goes back to roughly November of 23. Him and I were talking, and he said, Mondo, pray for me because, we're planning on April for the ceremony. And remember, this happens on the Mount of Olives. It's not on the Temple Mount. So they own the property. They own the property. We were talking about it yesterday. They own the property there on the Temple Mount, a couple different places. So he said, pray for me because we want to live stream it to 800 million people. And we're trying to work out the details of what that looks like. So, again, what does that look like in that sense? But I would say this, you've been to Israel a lot. And when you walk around the Temple Mount, one of the reasons I address this in the book is that I'm skeptical about a secret ceremony, because people ask, could it have been done? Is, Silwan is right there across in the Kidron Valley. It's right across from the Temple Mount, the city of David. You scroll up to the right. Eastern Jerusalem there's certainly Jewish places, but there's a lot of Palestinian areas there, no doubt. But if this is a huge bonfire, okay, you can't have a bonfire on the Temple Mount without smoke. You can't have it a secret. Again, that's what smoke signals are, right? In ancient times was a signal. So the police would be called, the fire department would be called, all of the Palestinians in the area would go in there. It would be very unusual, almost extremely unlikely that would happen in secret. But secondly, even at Shiloh, where the cows are, when you're talking to the gal there, I don't remember her name. You might remember her name, but lately they've been saying, we don't want to do it in secret. We want this to be a joyous occasion for all of Israel. And so in that sense, they're not looking for a secret. They want it live streamed to 800 million people. But they would, now with Trump in there, they would be able to have the security and the confidence with the Israeli government, which was taken away through Biden's machinations and his backhanded stuff to Israel. They don't have that anymore. They're not worried.
That's interesting. I'm thinking I could just imagine what Iran how Iran would respond, and the Houthis and Hamas and Hezbollah. It could be very interesting. Like I said, it's right there in the heart of their community. Yeah. I walked through that in October, that area, and it's a definitely Arab community. It's a fascinating place to go. We did a video there. We have to go back and video in that area coming up in a couple of weeks. Looking forward to doing that because there's some amazing biblical history in that area too. All right, we'll leave it there for now, but your book is out as of today. I'm looking at this right now. I got the publication date. It is today, so March 4, The Mystery of the Red Heifer, Israel, the End Times, and the Building of the Third Temple. Mondo, I wish I had more time to get into the Third Temple with you. Tell you what, maybe when I'm in Galilee, we can start going back and forth on that. And because I'm actually going to be in Jerusalem for about a week before I go to Galilee. And I'm going to be walking through that exact area you're talking about, doing some video. So we're going to have a fun conversation for the Orlando conference, I'll tell you that much. And And then with that, I wanted to ask you about Psalm 19. I know we're pretty much out of time, but I love your Psalm 19 project. I love what it does. It displays the glory of God. It reminds us who's sovereign. Can you just a few minutes? If you can go a few minutes over, I would love to have you do that, because to me, that is one of the most incredible things, to see the glory of God and know that He is the real King, King of Kings and Lord of Lords.
I appreciate you giving me the opportunity. I will say one thing, that if people, about the book, people can buy it at Prophecy Watchers. So if they don't want to support Jeff Bezos, they can get it at Prophecy Watchers. We've had it for a couple weeks, so that's out there too. But yes, the Psalm 19 project, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the skies above show forth His handiwork. I mean, what we see and what we've had the opportunity is to create through people who are very kind and generous, who believe in the mission of showing off God's amazing power, is to build a university class observatory. And it's, we got 3 telescopes. The picture you have behind you is what it looks like, one of the ones that we've done. So to me, these are things that have been hidden from humanity because of technology for all of human history. And so now here we are at the end of the age, and God has allowed the technology to become very reasonable, to where we can take pictures, long exposure photographs, real photographs of things that are in the heavens, billions of objects. And we look at God's power, we see His creativity, we see His artistry, and He simply just spoke all these in existence, Genesis 1:14 through 16, in a moment. And we see, what is this? Well, that's a star that exploded, and a certain ionization of certain gases and helium and hydrogen and oxygen, and produce colors. And God just says, yeah, this is what I did.
That's cool. So, hey guys, can you show me again on full screen? I want everybody to see this. So can you just show me on full screen? There we go. So what is that? Is that the Horsehead Nebula, or which one is this?
I can only see part of it.
Oh, you can't see the whole thing?
I can't see the whole thing.
Oh, well, now I feel bad. So sorry. I don't know what to tell you. I don't think it's Horsehead Nebula. I just took a picture of
the Horsehead Nebula. And people go to Psalm19project.com, scroll down, and you see it, and it turned out phenomenal. I mean, it was amazing.
That is so cool. And I think, you've mentioned this is going to tick off a bunch of people, but it's like when some of the pictures you've taken, I've seen. I was really into astronomy a long time ago, and then just, I don't even know why I don't do it anymore. Maybe I don't have enough time, but I'd like to have my own observatory. Someday I'm going to have to check out what you got in person. But with that, you said this. You look at the glory of creation, you look at the planets, you look at the globes, and then you hear the flat Earth teachings that are out there, and they really have infiltrated much of the prophecy world. But I think you said it, when you go that direction, you take away the glory from God, and something like that.
Well, what you have is, when people see the picture behind you, they say that's all CGI, it's fake. NASA admits all this stuff is fake, which is not true. There are some things that NASA will say, this is an artistic rendering. That's true. I don't deny that. But the other pictures, they'll be like, well, this was taken with Hubble or James Webb, and so. Again, people in that community will say, there is no James Webb telescope. That's all fake. Everything's fake. And I go, okay, well, this is what Hubble, and I have it on the website. This is what Hubble took. Oh, whoops, that went big.
Your head got really big. It was great.
Well, some of it does this where it'll,
okay.
Whoops, sorry. Now it's all screwed up. I'll move back, because if I move my hand, it's like it does something there. But
that's funny.
No, I'm sorry for people that I'm so close. I'll scoot back. But you see a picture that Hubble takes, and then I'll go take a picture of the same coordinates, and what I've taken is the same. And so I'm like, look, guys, every time you say that stuff's fake, these are things that God created. They're beautiful. They're amazing. He spoke them into existence by the word of His power. And every time you deny that, you're taking away, you're stealing His glory that He created. Said, look at the heavens. The heavens are declaring my glory. And our job here is simply to help people see it. So I encourage people in that community that will say everything's fake, that they need to be careful, because they're going to answer on that day for stealing God's glory, which He created to be appreciated by His people.
That is great. Psalm 19, the heavens declare the glory of God. Anybody, I would encourage you, just go read Psalm 19 if you haven't done it yet, and then it really helps to put it all into perspective. But Mondo, it's been great having you on today. I can't wait to see you just a few weeks where
Yes.
I'll be seeing you in person, but not in person. It's going to be great. I'll try to get an update for you, pictures for you, whatever, for our time together regarding the temple and everything else going on, red heifers and the whole bit. And I look forward to seeing you in a few weeks. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Make sure you connect with Mondo at prophecywatchers.com. Also, the Orlando conference, going to be absolutely fantastic. And Mondo's new book. So you got a lot of things going on there. And I'd love to have you join me in California, Southern California, on April 18th. Check out our website, too. God bless you, everybody. See you tomorrow.